Right now, you are probably at a job or preparing for an interview, or trying to recover from the endless exhaustion of the 9-to-5 grind. We have bound our entire lives into a strange loop, selling 5 days of the week just to chase 2 days of freedom. But have you ever wondered, were we actually born just to work? Out of 300,000 years of human history, for nearly 290,000 years, the concept of a job simply did not exist. No applications, no resumes, no corporate bosses, and absolutely no concept of a weekend. So, what exactly did our ancestors do all day? Was their life just a brutal, constant struggle against death? Or did they possess something that even the richest people today cannot buy? Today, we unmask the single greatest illusion of humanity, the lie we call progress. Freeze the clock, because history is about to shatter everything you know. Because a common misconception is that ancient humans spent every waking second desperately running for their lives. History is about to shatter everything you know. We assume they lived in constant terror, but modern science reveals a completely different story. When anthropologists studied the world's surviving hunter-gatherer societies, such as the famous Hadza tribe of Tanzania, they uncovered a startling truth. These people only work about 3 to 5 hours a day. Just enough to gather what is necessary to eat. No factories, no performance targets, no monthly reviews. So what did they do with the rest of their day? They connected with their inner artist, painting stories on cave walls, playing with their children, composing music, and sharing deep human bonds. And then, without a single trace of insomnia or anxiety, sleeping peacefully under the open stars. We think we have progressed. We sit for 9 hours in an office, bring our laptops home, and check emails at midnight. For hunter-gatherers, every single day was a new adventure. They lived in perfect harmony with nature. They owned the ultimate wealth, the one thing we lack today, absolute free time. Finding food wasn't a miserable corporate burden. It was a deeply connected way of life. Their minds harbored no debts from the past, and no crippling anxiety for the future. Once the hunt was over, the workday was over. They crafted their own tools. They were their own masters. Their only boss was their own appetite. If they didn't feel like working on a given day, they simply didn't. The jungle belonged to no one. This is how human life began. Born free, living free. But then, a quiet conspiracy took place. One that altered the course of humanity forever. We were robust, physically fit, mentally sound, and completely at peace with each passing moment. No corporate KPIs, no standard operating procedures. Everything was pure and raw. Laughter and community were their true currencies. They didn't hoard material possessions, because carrying heavy baggage made no survival sense. Time was an ocean, flowing seamlessly without the pressure of artificial deadlines. They moved at the rhythm of the seasons, not the mechanical scream of a factory whistle. Stories echoed across generations, and life unfolded without systemic stress. But the clear skies of freedom were about to be choked by the shadows of the field. The world was changing, and humanity was about to trade its liberty away. Step by step, we marched directly into the modern trap we find ourselves suffocating in today. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, everything changed. Humanity stumbled into agriculture. And this was not mankind's greatest upgrade, it was our greatest historic deception. Living as a hunter-gatherer was dynamic. Agriculture turned humans into slaves of the soil. You could no longer leave. It meant dawn to dusk, back-breaking, monotonous labor. When archaeologists compared skeletons, they found early farmers were shorter, malnourished, and riddled with joint diseases. And the worst part? Once you grew a surplus of crops, you had to defend them from being stolen. This birthed the most dangerous psychological concept in history, ownership, the idea of "this land is mine." Suddenly, humanity was plagued by warfare, raiding, and the violent creation of borders. If the rain failed, an entire year of agonizing labor vanished, and thousands faced brutal starvation. If a pest insect struck the field, your entire livelihood was wiped out in a single afternoon. We abandoned the endless horizon to lock ourselves inside tiny mud boxes we now call homes. Life was no longer about roaming free. It was about grinding away on the exact same patch of earth. We did not domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us. Living permanently next to livestock birthed the first catastrophic human plagues and pandemics. The routine was born, waking up every day to execute the exact same mechanical loop over and over. Forests were cleared, ecosystems rewritten, and human nature violently disconnected from its origin. Surplus food was created, but it didn't give the average human more rest. It just created more complex problems. This belongs to me, that belongs to you. This sudden greed shrunk the human spirit and amplified anxiety. Constant worry over irrigation and harvests took over. The luxury of looking at the open sky was fading away. Blistered hands and chronic lower back pain became the permanent signatures of human existence. You could no longer cross the landscape without permission. The ancient nomadic lifestyle was dead. The labor expanded exponentially, but the peace of the individual withered away. We caged the wild animals around us, and in doing so, caged ourselves inside a giant social machine. Every weather shift became a terrifying existential threat to survival. Man could now only look out of tiny windows, wishing for the days when walls didn't exist. We traded our primitive, unburdened liberty for a hyper-focused obsession with food security. And this was merely the foundation of the trap. From this agricultural cage emerged a brand new engine of human control. Total resources were scaling up, but the average worker was left with nothing but scraps and endless toil. Man was now completely buried under the weight of his own creation. Because food was now mass-produced, not every single person needed to farm. Some became full-time potters, others became weavers. Welcome to the era of specialization. It sounds highly efficient, but it introduced a fatal vulnerability to human freedom. If a specialized craftsman lost his trade or the market shifted, he had forgotten how to hunt. He would starve. A select few seized control of the surplus resources and declared themselves kings and masters. And from this mutual dependency, the first true social hierarchies were born. A select few seized control of the surplus resources and declared themselves. The rest were left with absolutely no choice but to sell their labor and their limited hours just to survive. True freedom was locked away behind high palace walls, accessible only to the ruling elite. If your specific skill failed in the economy, there was no safety net. You were entirely on your own. Then came the invention of taxation. The fruits of your brutal labor were legally stolen by the state. For the very first time, human existence was governed by ledger books, debts, and math. You were now completely woven into a systemic grid from which escape was practically treason. You no longer ate when you were hungry, you ate when the system distributed your meager rations. The wild jungle was still out there, freedom was still calling, but the gates were locked by bronze swords. Currency and power structures were now the absolute orchestrators of human destiny. Every human being was gradually ground down into a tiny, replaceable cog in a massive engine. Your entire lifetime was repurposed to build monuments and fill the treasuries of people you would never meet. Humanity had lost its identity. We were no longer sovereign apex predators, but nameless units of labor. Cities expanded, empires flourished, and individual liberty was systematically crushed into oblivion. But the actual modern corporate job you perform today was forged in the fire of the Industrial Revolution. Factories didn't care about your artistry, your heritage, or your soul. They only wanted your hours. The modern capitalist landscape exploded. Humans were disconnected from the earth and bound to the machine. You sold your time, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, trapped in toxic air, performing the exact same mechanical motion. Children and adults alike were fed into the belly of industry to maximize the margins of the elite. Time was no longer dictated by nature. The rising and setting of the sun meant nothing. The 40-hour work week we take for granted today was paid for in blood through brutal labor strikes. We finally won weekends and safety regulations. But then we mistook this 40-hour cell for absolute freedom. In 1926, Henry Ford standardized the 5-day work week, and we celebrated it as a massive victory. In reality, they successfully locked our entire existence into a standardized corporate grid. A beautifully constructed maze, where every single path inevitably leads back to Monday morning. The terrifying velocity of industrialization completely crushed human tranquility. Eating was no longer a communal feast. It was a rushed 15-minute refueling window between shifts. Your time was no longer your property. The signed employment contract became the bill of sale for your life. The system consumed millions of lives daily just to keep the gears of the corporate engine turning. Even in sleep, the mechanical rhythm and the dread of the next shift echoed inside the human brain. The harder you toiled, the faster the generated wealth bypassed your hands to accumulate at the very top. Exhaustion crossed from the physical body and became a permanent sickness of the human soul. Humanity was homogenized, a nameless, faceless army designed for nothing but output. And just like that, the doors of the modern cage slammed shut. Want to hear a deeply uncomfortable historical fact? The average modern worker works significantly more hours than a medieval peasant. Early agricultural workers had massive winter breaks, endless saints' days, and seasonal festivals of rest. Our minds and bodies did not evolve to sit under artificial lights for 11 months a year answering electronic mail. We have surrendered our core identity. We are no longer human beings. We are corporate employee codes. The chronic stress of being perpetually online, the weight of unread messages, and the never-ending pings. We spend our entire youth working just to buy a few fragile years of freedom at the age of retirement. Is that a fair trade? Our ancestors lacked smartphones, but they fully possessed their own lives. They were free. So, was this progress truly an upgrade? Or are we sitting in a cage with the word progress painted on the door? Perhaps it is time to step out of this endless rat race and reclaim the sovereignty of our time. Because your time is your only true wealth. Stop spending it building someone else's empire. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Deep Dive History. Are you ready to break out of the corporate cage? Start living your life deliberately, rather than functioning as a tool for the machine. Currency can buy possessions, but it can never repurchase a single expired second. Reclaiming the ancient peace while utilizing modern tech, that is the true definition of progress. Free your mind from the systemic anxiety and step back into the natural world. Every automated click pulls you away from yourself. It is time to pause. Let us return to the balance that was once our true home. Make your health, your peace of mind, and your loved ones your primary targets. Because a job is merely a tool to sustain your life, it is not the life itself. The next time the corporate anxiety strikes, remember, you are not a machine component, you are a human being. And your time belongs absolutely to you. Think far beyond the limits of the corporate paradigm. Life was always meant to be unburdened. We are the ones who made it complicated. The cage door has been wide open all along. You just need the courage to step outside. This was the dark reality behind humanity's ultimate illusion, progress. Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on our next deep dive into history.